Long ago, a girl in Antigua, Guatemala wanted a life less ordinary. She could have grown up picking coffee on the side of the volcano and married a nice boy her parents chose for her, but she had a hunger deep inside her, a hunger for adventure. Her parents had named her Valeria, but she went by Val, and many said it was short for Valiente. Of course, she was not a rebellious child. She did very well in school and respected her elders, but because she wanted to go see the world in all its glory, she studied geography and history, and above all, how to build an airplane. She worked on it for months, and when it was ready, she had to wait just a little longer before she could go. This was in 1907, and not everyone could come and go as they pleased. Once she had graduated and completed her obligations, she told all of the boys who were courting her that they would have to wait a little, and she rolled her little biplane down the bumpy cobblestone street past Central Park. In those days, no one believed a girl could fly a plane, much less build one by herself, but she proved them all wrong when she bounced a few times and then soared up into the air. With a contagious laugh, she circled over the Parque Central, waving at the people running behind her, with her scarf streaming out behind her, disappeared over the mountains. However, adventures aren't all daisies, bunnies, and hugs. It was her first flight, and there were a lot of things people only learn through experience. The wind blowing over the mountains is strong, and it blew her far off course. Plus, her scarf wrapped itself around her head for a few minutes, covering her eyes, and she couldn't see exactly which direction she went. So, when she finally got it out of her face, a massive ruin in front of her was a bit of a surprise. No one knows who had built that pyramid, sticking its head out of the jungle, but it was built well, and her little plane crashing into it would not have made much of a dent. Luckily, she pulled up just in time and managed to miss the ancient stones by just a hair's breadth. The sudden rise did, however, cause her plane to stall, and its tires screeched on the steps leading up to the pinnacle. Bouncing violently, it slowed just as it came to the summit, and there was a moment of calm when it rolled to a stop and began to roll back down again. Panicking, Val scrambled about in the cockpit of the plane, looking for something to stop her descent, and then threw out an anchor that caught a moss-covered horn of rock. The rope attached to it snapped taut, and her little plane jerked sickeningly, but it held. Sighing, she took off her pink leather helmet and goggles, shaking out her hair, and gazed all around her at the splendor of the jungle. The squawk of toucans and the chattering of purple monkeys in the trees made her laugh, as all the animals below her pointed up, wondering aloud what she could be. She noticed that her lunchbox had fallen out of the plane during the commotion, and rolled noisily down the steps toward the waving canopy of trees far below. Climbing out of the cockpit, she tested the anchor's rope with her finger, making it twang deeply. Satisfied, she nodded and took off her gloves, descending the old stone steps of the pyramid. The swaying sea of leaves reminded her of the surface of Lake Atitlan, calm and peaceful from above. But she knew that once she got below the surface, it would be a very different place. Just like the lake, there were all kinds of hungry things that would want to have her for lunch, and it would not be satisfied with just her sandwich, apple, and cookies. She hesitated when she got to the canopy. It was like the Romans she had read about in her history books, when Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon. She could always just go hungry back to her plane and hope she found something else to eat on her journey. But it would be a lot less dangerous to just leave her lunch down there. But she remembered what her parents told her about littering. Decent people do not leave things lying on the ground. The jungle was no place to leave a lunchbox, and besides, heroes don't make excuses. Setting her jaw and standing up straight, she descended into the shadows. The whoops and caws of far-off birds made her jump a few times, but she remembered the rule about being brave. Running into a bad situation without fear is not courage. That's just being reckless. True courage is when you're full of fear, aware of the danger, and you do what you have to anyway. Well, she thought, I'll see if I'm truly brave, because I'm terrified. She descended into the shadows, illuminated here and there by shafts of sunlight spearing through the leaves, dappling the pyramid steps. 1,000 eyes blinked at her in the darkness, and 1,000,000 others did not have lids to blink with. 8 of those eyes, shining opaquely like black jade, watched her from the fuzzy head of a giant spider as she passed directly beneath it. When she paused, waiting for her own eyes to adjust to the change in light, the spider descended on a thick, sticky thread toward her. It smiled evilly, its mandibles spreading, and the strings of saliva that hung between them grew long and thin before splitting. Val stared at the darkest parts of the jungle all around her, waiting for it to become clear. As she did, she enjoyed the calls of the toucans and the monkeys. Above her, the jaws of the giant spider opened wide. Then, Val thought she heard the barking of a dog and frowned. Dogs in the jungle? She was sure they had only jungle dogs in faraway lands like India, not in Guatemala. She had to investigate. She sprang down the old stone steps, taking them 3 at a time, and the spider lunged just an instant too late. It fell on the step where she had been standing, bonking its head. All of its 8 eyes became X's, and chirping little blue birds chased stars in a circle around its head. Down the side of the pyramid Val ran, being careful not to slip on the lichen and moss that grew on the ancient stones. And it took a very long time to get to the bottom. The ruin was that big, and it gave her new respect for all the people who lived back in the old days, because not only did they go through a lot of work to build it, they also had to walk up and down it all the time. When she finally got close to the bottom, she jumped the last 10 steps, hitting the grass and skipping into the underbrush toward the barking dog. Pausing briefly along the way, she saw her lunchbox where it had landed in a bush. It would be easy enough to retrieve, and she decided to let it wait. She had to see the dog first and satisfy her curiosity. Maybe an older and wiser explorer would have moved more quietly in the jungle, but she was new at adventuring and was having fun. When she came to a giant banyan tree, there was a beagle swinging by one paw from a rope. It howled, sad and afraid, and trying to shake itself free only made it swing more. How odd, Val said, to see a beagle here, so far from civilization. She approached it slowly, shushing it gently, speaking calm and soothing words. It stopped its howling to stare at her curiously. It turned out to be a male dog, and a rather handsome one at that. He had a noble face, or at least he would have if he were right side up. As it were, his ears hung down from its head, and so did the flaps of his jowls, so that his teeth showed a very goofy smile.